I'd like to come back to hypnosis for a second. I've never been hypnotized, nor, or maybe I have self-hypnotized and just not realized that's what I was doing. What characterizes hypnosis, or how would we define that? And do the states induced by hypnosis have any shared characteristics with some of the states induced by any psychedelics?
So hypnosis is a state of calm and high focus. So context is restricted. It's like looking at something through a telephoto lens. You're eliminating the surround. So it's a state of high focus, which normally, as we talked about earlier with the aperture, the visual system would be associated with a high degree of excitement or stress. But hypnosis is a unique state because you have a high degree of focus, but you're very relaxed. And just to remind people that neuroplasticity is triggered by states of high focus, followed by periods of relaxation later in deep sleep or in non-sleep deep rest. In hypnosis, it brings both those states together at the same time. And this is one of the reasons it's effective in accelerating neuroplasticity. I could probably do it right now to see how hypnotizable you are. There's actually a test, a clinical test called the Spiegel Eye Roll test. Spiegel's father was a hypnotist and a psychiatrist. So I want to be clear, these are not stage hypnotists. These are board-certified MDs and PhDs who there's a lot of scientific research to support what we're about to talk about. So typically when we get sleepy, when we're relaxed, our eyelids close and our eyes go down and the chin goes down. The induction to hypnosis involves doing the opposite, looking up, which actually, believe it or not, creates a state of alertness, and then having you close your eyes. So it creates a kind of conflict in the cranial nerves that innervate the eye and eyelid muscles. Again, the eyes and your state of mind are so intricately wired back there in the brainstem. So if you could look up toward the ceiling, Tim, with eyes open, and then just while still maintaining upward gaze, you could just slowly close your eyelids. Oh boy, you're really hypnotizable.
So what did you see? That was, do you think uncomfortable?
Yeah, I know, it's a little bit odd. So for those of you listening and watching, you sort of look up towards what, sometimes in yoga community or meditation community called the third eye center. We don't actually have a third eye, but if we did, it would probably be, someone decided it would be between our two eyes and our forehead. So by looking up, you're inducing alertness. And then you're creating this conflict where I asked you to close your eyelids, which is what you do when you're in a state of sleepiness. And what Spiegel, both Spiegel Senior and Spiegel Junior have figured out is that it's a very good predictor of how hypnotizable people are. You can look up the Spiegel Eye Roll test. And what I was looking for is, let's say somebody is not very hypnotizable. What'll happen is as they close their eyes, they'll have a hard time closing them slowly. They'll just kind of snap shut and their eyes will roll forward. In other words, I'll see their pupils again. What happened when I saw you do this is that your eyelids were closing very slowly and I saw the whites of your eyes. Your eyes were starting to roll back into your head. So you would have a score of probably about a 4, which is very hypnotizable. I'm about a 4. Some people you'll just notice, you say, look up, and then slowly close your eyes, and their eyes will just kind of snap shut, and their eyes will roll forward right before it snaps shut. So you can do this experiment of sorts on people that you know, and it predicts pretty well how quickly or easily you will go into hypnosis. I should mention that no one will go into hypnosis if they don't want to, but if you're interested in exploring hypnosis with the Rewire app or with a clinical hypnotist, and your eyes roll back the way that you're sitting, then you're home free. You could be long days before it's...
Oh, amazing. I could, maybe I'll start speaking in tongues too. It does have a good associated look with it. How would you explain the utility of hypnosis? And then I do want to hear if there are any sort of correlates to some of the known effects of psychedelics, and that's a wide spectrum of class. So we could choose short a given compound. But what are the clinical applications? Because in my hypnosis naive mind, I think smoking cessation, isn't it good for quitting smoking? Isn't it good for really just these anecdotal reports that I've read at one point or another? But what's the sort of what are some of the clinical applications or practical applications of hypnosis?
Yeah, so for smoking cessation, if people do the practice, about a 60 to 80% success rate, depending on the study you look at. These were all blinded controlled studies. In terms of anxiety relief, those are tremendously strong effects. As many as 90% of people are going to feel significant improvement in anxiety for pain management, for chronic pain. There's a high degree of success, so people will vary depending on how hypnotizable they are and how regular they are about the practice. But anywhere from 50 to 75% of people will experience a significant reduction in chronic pain. And if they are using pain meds, they tend to be able to take lower dosage of pain medications in order to manage that pain. So it's quite powerful. Now for trauma and things of that sort, it needs to be done with a clinical, I would hope, board-certified MD clinical hypnotist, and their success rates are quite high as well. And if you want more research about this inside the Rewire app, there's a long list of resources. You could also, I can send over a good review article that David's written in. These are again published in very fine quality peer-reviewed journals of the New England Journal, JAMA, SWORD, and things like that. Great. In terms of similarity to psychedelics, they are quite distinct actually. So hypnosis, being a state of high degree of focus and relaxation, is a bit similar to some of the so-called psychedelics. So MDMA, psychotherapy, which it appears thanks to the support and work of people like you and the Max group and the group of Hopkins, in particular Matthew Johnson, and I realize there are other people in that mix, but I have to just say, as a point, it's really exciting to see what's happening, and the enthusiasm about building safe protocols that people can access after so many years of people having to do this on a renegade or in unregulated environments. MDMA creates in a very atypical state. It's a state of high dopamine release. Typically, dopamine is associated with a focus on things external to us. Dopamine, being a molecule associated with motivation and reward, makes us want to do more of things that brought the dopamine, whether or not that's food, sex, online viewing of any kind, etc. It's not always that, but
that online viewing,
whatever that is, the best way to describe the effects of dopamine, or that there's a book actually, quite a good book called The Molecule of More, and that's a great way to describe it. I wish I'd written that book. I read the book and thought, I wish I'd written this book. I love the neuromodulated systems, and it is the molecule of more. And actually, anyone that thinks that dopamine is about pleasure, not motivation, or seeking more, consider this. This is an anecdote I borrowed from my colleague Anna Lemke, using in the Department of Psychiatry at Stanford. The next time you eat a piece of chocolate, or you engage in a behavior that feels particularly delicious, notice the sensation and the thoughts in your mind. It's rarely about complete presence and desire for staying present. It's usually a desire for more. It's this, I want more of this, please, as opposed to really basking in the experience. And I should mention that Anna has a wonderful book coming out in August called Dopamine Nation. She was in The Social Dilemma. She's an addiction therapist and psychiatrist and talks a lot about the dopamine system. So dopamine makes us want more of whatever feels really good. And that tends to place us in an external focus. Serotonin, another feel-good molecule, is the exact opposite. It tends to make us feel good with what we already have. It tends to be the incredible feelings of warmth that, holding a child or a loved one, or time with your dog. I have this bulldog called Serotonin. There's times when I just sit with him and I feel immense pleasure just being there. I don't think I want 4 bulldogs. I definitely don't want 4 bulldogs. The snoring is loud enough already. But it's about experiencing the here and now in a full and complete way. MDMA is unique because it creates huge increases in dopamine and serotonin at the same time. And we don't ordinarily see that in natural experience. And it has this unique property of making people feel very excited and positive about their relationship to their internal state. And so it has a kind of looping back of a mechanism that normally would place us in the viewing of the exterior, what's out there, what can I get more of, who can I interact with more of, what drug can I take more of that's gonna make me feel this way. So MDMA is very unique, and I mention it because it has certain correlates with hypnosis in that it's very focused state. In fact, so much so that, let's just say, I could imagine that if you're hearing music and you focus on that music, you can really kind of start to merge with the music, whereas if you focus on your internal state, you can merge with your internal state. And that's why I do think it's important that some of that, if people are doing it in a clinical setting, be guided, because otherwise the experience can be sort of lost on whatever is external. Other psychedelics of the sort like Psilocybin LSD, they have a very sweet-like state. They tend to be more serotonergic in nature, and they are very somewhat sweet in the sense that space and time become very fluid. Whatever top-down governing mechanisms exist in the brain, so-called your executive function, some of that seems to be dysregulated enough so that inside of those psychedelic states, and certainly inside dreams, anything can really happen, and you can essentially see and appreciate novel associations that normally wouldn't occur in waking states. We should remember that the 2 extremes of human experience are stress and/or excitement. So highly contracted visual window, highly contracted time domain. So it's very fine. What's happening next? What's gonna happen next thing? You're in the line at the airport and the first in front of you is moving slowly and you got a plane to catch. Everything constricted to right there. Both in space and time, and then sleep. Where in sleep, space and time are extremely fluid. Anything can happen, and you are essentially out of control mentally. It's just whatever is gonna happen from habit. Psychedelics are very much like that, except that in LSD and psilocybin assisted states, you're alert. So I would say that psilocybin and LSD-like states are similar to hypnosis in that way. But hypnosis has a little bit more of a rigidity to it. It's set toward a particular focus, like let's work on your control over stress or smoking or pain. And so I would say the 3 of them occupy neighboring spaces, but none of them overlap completely.